Alright, so you've just jumped into Sworn and now you're staring at all these spells wondering, okay, which ones are actually worth it? That's exactly what we're going to figure out today. Spells aren't just flashy attacks in this game, they pretty much decide how your whole run is going to play out. Some of them click with almost any playstyle and make your life way easier, while others need very specific setups to shine. And yeah, a few of them are, let's just say, not pulling their weight. In this tier list, we're breaking down the best spells you can grab, the ones that feel good no matter what kind of build you're running. At the same time, we'll talk about those lower tier options that sound cool on paper but usually end up working against you. By the end, you'll know which spells are your go-to tools and which ones you should probably leave behind. Let's dive in and start sorting through the good, the bad, and the surprisingly situational. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking spells in Sworn. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching! The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Commander's Shield, Bull Rush, Dragon Dive, Blink, and Dagger Flurry. You know that moment when you really want a spell to be awesome, but then it just feels like trying to swing a sword made of wet spaghetti? Yeah. Welcome to the C-tier spells of Sworn. These are not totally useless, but they are the kind of abilities you pick, try once, and then immediately regret when you realize there were better options. Let's dive into them one by one. First up, Commander's Shield. On paper, this thing sounds heroic. It gives you and your co-op buddy some bonus damage, and you can even stack it if you cast it multiple times. Sounds amazing, right? Well, not exactly. The problem is that it locks you into this tiny little bubble of safety. If you're playing Rook, who is supposed to be all over the battlefield smashing skulls in close combat, suddenly being stuck inside a circle feels more like you are grounded by your parents than empowered by magic. Now, let's talk about Bull Rush. This one at least knows how to make an entrance. It comes out swinging with high starting damage, and if you are lucky, you can hit multiple enemies at once. Plus, you can dash cancel it, which means you can look stylish while doing it. The problem? After a while, it feels like that one party trick you keep showing your friends. Impressive the first 2 times, but eventually everyone just sighs and says, yeah, we have seen that already. Dragon Dive is next, and it is the definition of cool but impractical. The damage when it lands is solid, but the way it explodes on impact can actually work against you if you're trying to use ranged weapons like the Armillary Sphere or the Arcane Blade. Imagine setting up the perfect shot from a distance, only to blow it up in your own face because Dragon Dive decided it wanted to photobomb the action. Thanks, spell. Very helpful. And then we have Blink. Oh boy! Blink could have been great. It hits hard, yes, but the cast time is longer than waiting for your slowest friend to finish looting in an RPG. And the worst part? You actually have to aim it, which is especially painful if you are playing with a controller. To make matters worse, the splash damage radius is so tiny that you start to wonder if it is even working. It is like throwing a firecracker in a football stadium. You hear it, but nobody really notices. Dagger Flurry, on the other hand, is at least trying to be stylish. It makes you dodge backward while you throw a bunch of daggers, which actually pairs really well with close-range weapons like the sword or the bow staff. The cast is quick, so you feel like a ninja for about half a second. But then reality hits because the range is short and the hitbox is so awkward that half the daggers just miss completely. It is kind of like trying to butter toast with chopsticks. Technically possible, but very inefficient. The common theme with all these spells is that they are not terrible. They have moments where you think, okay, this is actually pretty good. But those moments are usually followed by frustration, disappointment, or laughter at how clumsy they are. You are not going to throw your controller across the room because of them, but you are also not going to brag about using them either. If you really want to challenge yourself or just want to spice things up for a run, then sure, pick one of these spells. They are the video game equivalent of ordering pineapple on your pizza. Some people swear by it, some people tolerate it, and everyone else is just kind of confused. At the end of the day, the C-tier spells are here to remind us that not every ability can be a superstar. Some are meant to be quirky, some are meant to fill very specific niches, and some are just experiments that did not quite stick the landing. And that is okay. Every tier list needs its middle children. So yeah, if you're feeling brave, grab one of these spells and make it work. Just do not come crying when your perfectly lined up combo gets ruined because Dragon Dive decided to ruin your ranged attack. You have been warned. The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Stormcall, Arcane Shield, Black Hole, Blade Rush, and Mystic Beam. You know those spells that are not the best of the best, but also not the kind you instantly regret picking? That's where the B tier lives. These spells are reliable, solid, and sometimes even clutch, but they are not exactly the stuff legends are made of. Think of them as your dependable sidekick. Let's start with Stormcall. Honestly, this one feels like borrowing Gogmagog's homework, but making it slightly more flexible. You get a damage shield that stays up until you actually take a hit, and as the monk, you can just recast it whenever you want. Pretty handy, right? It even lets you share the shield with your friends in co-op. The only real downside is that it does absolutely zero damage. So it is basically like showing up to a sword fight with a really big umbrella. Useful but not exactly threatening. Arcane Shield is basically Stormcall's twin sibling. It has the same strengths: the Gogmagog-style damage shield, the ability to recast it, and the power to protect your buddies in co-op. And it has the same weakness too: no damage output whatsoever. It is reliable defense, but you are not going to blast through enemies with it. Honestly, Stormcall and Arcane Shield are like the tanky friends in your group. They are there to keep you alive, but they are never going to win the karaoke contest. Next up, Black Hole. Now we are talking about something fun. The damage it deals right from the start is solid, but the real magic is in the crowd control. Watching enemies get sucked into the vortex and then dragged onto traps is the kind of chaotic joy you just cannot put a price on. It is like being the host of a really aggressive dance party. Everyone's invited, whether they like it or not. But let us not oversell it. Black Hole does have its limits. Sometimes it pulls enemies exactly where you want them, and other times it just makes a mess and ruins your positioning. Still, the combination of damage and control makes it one of those spells you will never be disappointed to pick up. B tier feels right, because it is awesome, but not game-breaking. Blade Rush, on the other hand, is all about style and speed. It hits hard, casts quickly, and doubles as an extra dodge or mobility tool. When it works, you feel like a martial arts movie star sliding across the battlefield. The only real catch is that it can be finicky to aim. Miss your target and you just look like you are practicing interpretive dance in the middle of combat. Even with that flaw, Blade Rush is a favorite for anyone who loves aggressive, fast-paced play. It rewards precision and timing, but punishes you when you get sloppy. In other words, it is a spell that makes you look cooler than you actually are, until you misfire it straight into a wall. Now, Mystic Beam is the kind of spell that quietly grows on you. Its opening damage is strong, but the real beauty is how it stacks up over time. Keep it going, and suddenly you are melting enemies from across the map. And let us not forget the range. It is basically the long arm of the monk. Perfect for clearing out threats before they even get close. The thing with Mystic Beam is that it feels a little plain compared to flashier spells. There is no fancy crowd control or dramatic explosion, but what it does really well. Consistent damage at a safe distance. It is like the straight-A student in class. Maybe not the most exciting, but you definitely want it on your team. So overall, the B tier is filled with spells that make you say, yeah, I could work with this. They might not define your run the way S tier picks do, but they also will not let you down the way C tier spells often do. They are solid, dependable, and sometimes surprisingly fun. And in a game like Sworn, sometimes that is all you need. The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Assassin Dagger, Counter, and Skydrop. The A tier spells are where things start to get exciting. These are the ones that feel powerful, versatile, and just a step away from greatness. They might not completely dominate the game like the S tier does, but when you have one of these in your arsenal, you instantly feel like you are playing with style. Let's kick things off with Assassin Dagger. This spell is smooth, fast, and honestly feels a little unfair sometimes. The range is excellent, the starting damage is high, and the cast time is lightning quick. It is the kind of spell that makes you feel like you are throwing shade. Literally. Simple, efficient, and deadly, Assassin Dagger never really lets you down. It is the reliable best friend you actually want in your party. Then we have Counter. Now this one is spicy. It deals great starting damage, and when it lands, it hits multiple enemies in a nice little radius around you. The downside, of course, is that it is a close-range counter, which means you have to be brave enough, or reckless enough, to let enemies swing at you before you respond. Pull it off correctly, though, and it is one of the most satisfying payoffs in the game. It is basically the Try Me spell. Skydrop is next, and it looks epic every single time you cast it. The damage is great, and slamming down from above feels like you are announcing your arrival in the most dramatic way possible. The catch is the cast time. It takes a while, and you have to aim it carefully. For anyone using a controller, that clunky aiming process can turn your glorious superhero landing into a very awkward belly flop. Despite that flaw, Skydrop still belongs in A tier because when it works, it really works. Clearing out a group of enemies in one cinematic crash landing is just too satisfying to ignore. It is one of those spells that makes you forgive its awkward setup because the payoff is pure joy. So overall, A tier spells are the heavy hitters that do not quite reach perfection, but still deliver amazing results. Assassin Dagger shines with speed and range. Counter rewards your courage with devastating hits, and Skydrop trades finesse for spectacle. Together they prove that A tier is where the real fun begins. The spells in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Spirit Guardians, Turrets, and Shadow Strike. And now we have made it to the big leagues, the S tier spells. These are the absolute best in Sworn, the ones that turn a decent run into a highlight reel. When you pick one of these up, you are not just stronger, you are practically auditioning for the role of final boss yourself. Let's start with Spirit Guardians. Sure, the starting damage might not blow you away, but that is missing the point. This spell is all about stacking up over time. Once it gets rolling, the damage just keeps climbing, and it doubles as incredible crowd control. Enemies wander too close, they get shredded by the swirling guardians. It is passive damage, it has range, and it feels like walking around with your own personal security detail. Next up, Crystal Turrets. Indestructible, powerful, and one of the best sources of crowd control in the entire game. You drop these babies down, and suddenly the battlefield is working in your favor. They keep enemies busy, they build stacks beautifully, and the fact that they cannot be destroyed makes them one of the safest investments in the entire spell roster. If you want to lock down space and force enemies to play your game, Crystal Turrets are the way to go. Then there is Shadow Strike, and wow, this one is flashy. It auto-locks onto the closest enemy, the cast is lightning fast, and if you are running bobbed, the damage potential is just ridiculous. The only hiccup is that sometimes it teleports you behind the wrong enemy, which can feel like your spell got stage fright. But when it does what it is supposed to, Shadow Strike is one of the most satisfying nukes in the entire game. These three spells basically define what S tier is all about: power, utility, and consistency. Spirit Guardians snowballs into unstoppable damage, Crystal Turrets completely reshape the battlefield, and Shadow Strike gives you instant offense with style points. Each one offers something unique, and each one can carry a run by itself. So if you see one of these pop up in your choices, there is no debate. Pick it, cast it, and watch as your enemies regret ever existing. The S tier is where champions are made, and these spells prove exactly why. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.